Hello, this is Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech number 221, going over MTG Worlds, the deck list, the amazing plays, and more of my experience at PAX Prime this year for Magic. It was an incredible tournament to watch. I am not a huge watcher of Magic. I'd much rather be playing, but the experience of watching Worlds live was amazing. I highly recommend it if you get a chance to come out. The community was so accessible there. One of the cool people I know who works over at Wizards, Mel Lee, organized a Commander night where everybody got to play Commander in one of the hotel lobbies, and I met lots of cool people there. As I was sitting in the audience, I was behind Patrick Chapin, and he was giving running commentary to some other individuals there, and just hearing his insight was amazing. I got to play EDH with people like Brian David Marshall and run into one of my absolute favorite cosplayers out there, C Sparkle Run, someone I support over on Patreon. The community experience that Wizards put together, bringing all of these people to Seattle and then giving us an opportunity to interact with them, make new friends, meet people, was just wonderful overall. I highly recommend coming out to Worlds next year if you get a chance at PAX Prime. There's been a lot of discussion about the commentary at PAX Prime. I strongly support Jackie Lee as a commentator. She was new to the Worlds commentary, and she brought a lot to it. Clearly a strong Magic player. She's a little bit less boisterous than some of the other commentators. When she spoke up, she had great things to say. There were 4 different formats in this event, the first of which was Modern Masters Draft. I really like watching Constructed. Draft has never been super exciting to me. I'd rather play it, but Modern Masters is one of those sets that has a lot of depth to it. It reminds me of drafting a cube. It also has this higher end to it where games can end up being decided by really powerful cards. It was fun to look at some of the deck choices that people had on Thursday. Overall, though, I really liked what they did last year, slightly better. Or was it the year before? They went through and drafted a cube with power in it, similar to the Moto Holiday Cube. I wish that Modern Masters was a little bit more accessible so that we could also be drafting it at the same time as the pros are doing it. A little bit hard to get a hold of. Overall, though, if you're going to do limited events, Cube and Modern Masters are the 2 best ways to do it. Most of my commentary here is going to be on the constructed games, though. I found the constructed games to be a lot more tense overall than the draft games. Got a big tip here for you guys. The new Mulligan rule is coming, and across the board, individuals were making mistakes and missing it, which is extremely natural. I'm not meaning to pull out Paul Rietzl here because he's one of the strongest players out there, and I'm going to look at one of the games that he had because I think he had one of the best games in the entire tournament. But even he, in the top 4, missed scrying after mulliganing. And you've got this muscle memory going on in Magic where it's very easy to put yourself into a pattern, and developing new patterns can be difficult. So with the new Mulligan rule, I strongly recommend that each time you mulligan, put a die on top of your deck before you've even decided to keep or not. And then that die is going to help remind you that you need to scry before you move on to turn 1, before you let your opponent take a turn. Having that physical reminder is extremely useful. Now let's take a look at an incredible play that Paul found that really got him into the top 4. And he had been in a really difficult position in this game and even in this match. And he found the only real out that he had to come back, and he executes it really well. Just wonderful to see this happen. This is one of the most exciting moments in the entire tournament.
Attack with Tassiger. No problem, says Rietzl. He's going to drop down to 15 here. He still has that Dent Protector activation in his pocket. He's going to wait till the last moment to use that.
Is there a little bit of a window where he could get back a Johnny and then put counters on the Den Protector and it's unblockable? That's...
He can do that.
But it's
Martin's
only
tapped
6,
out.
right?
It's just not enough to kill Martin. That is interesting.
But
I don't think it gets the job quite done here.
I mean, if he makes that play and he can survive another turn, then Siege Rhino becomes an out, maybe?
There you go. Or it attacking again.
Yeah, it attacking again, right?
I mean,
If he goes...
is he guaranteed that he's going to lose his Den Protector here?
Not with any cards he knows about.
It also gets it out of range of Bile Blight. He's at 15. He can take a full hit here.
Herald is similar, but cheaper.
Oh, that's true. The Herald is...
Herald makes it 6 power for
True.
only 3 mana, although he obviously has to pay the life for the Herald. Well, it's not 3 mana, it's 6 mana. Yeah, Johnny's cheaper. Or it's the same.
It's the same. They both
It's the
cost
same.
5
They're
to,
both 5.
to get the counters. Yeah. One leaf.
And he has
Wow,
a Siege
that
Rhino.
was a Siege Rhino off the top for Rietzl.
Whoa, okay, we're starting to put something together
Is
here.
this business here? Remember, Martin's completely tapped out here. I think Paul sees this line that you found, Ian. Now, it's not going to be over, though, because Martin gets a draw step and a hit with Ojutai to find something.
Right.
But he can't deal 15 next turn.
No, he's not going to be able to kill him. And bang!
Unbelievable.
Attack you for 6, put you to 2.
And
And he needs to find multiple somethings here now with that Siege Rhino draw.
Paul Rietzl, I've heard him described as stubborn. He refuses to die. He just
He
never
will
dies.
not die. Looking to put his hands on his head.
Well,
And
he knows
what's
he's
more,
got this next turn.
A Tassiger activation doesn't help here because Paul can just give Martin back Thoughtseize, which he can't cast.
Which he can't even cast
So
at all.
he needs to find a solution from his draw step this turn.
And he has to counter the Siege Rhino that's in Paul's hand.
That's right. And you know what? Ojutai just killed a
Killed
Johnny.
a Johnny?
Yes. That means he doesn't get to try to find an extra answer here.
Paul's going to win this game.
Paul is going to win this. He can go to attacks here. Attack for lethal. See if that happens. And if not, he's got the backup plan with the Rhino.
So Muller has a Bile Blight, which
He
he
does.
can use to
Which
shrink the Den
shrinks,
Protector,
and then he can
block
block?
it. Right? And then the question is...
But
I
then
don't-
Rhino.
I don't think Muller has a counter spell.
I don't think
the
so
question
either.
is, how will Paul respond to that?
Oh, by the way, Paul top decked the second Siege Rhino. Now
And
he's only got
he's
7
a mana short, yeah.
So he's definitely going to jam
But he's
it
at
this turn.
15.
Oh my God. Has Paul Rietzl found the line here? It looks like he has.
Unbelievable.
Combat.
Go to combat, Bile Blight that to shrink it down. Make it to a 3-powered creature, which now can be blocked. Block with Tassiger. Sure. Paul just doesn't have a choice here, right? He just flips
Yeah.
it on the table. There it is, Siege Rhino.
Could this be it?
He
Oh,
wins!
unbelievable.
Paul Rietzl defeats...
This was just an incredible moment. Paul Rietzl's aggro deck in this matchup finds an incredible line to squeak in past Martin Mueller's control deck that had Tassiger and a Dragon Lord on the field. Thought that he may have stabilized there. Very well played. This is my favorite play of the tournament. Now we're moving on to a little bit of deck lists. Modern had a lot of different decks out there, although one of the most popular decks was Affinity or Robots. I've got a standard list on that over on an article that I did recently for Mox Boarding House and building a gauntlet for Modern. You can definitely head over there and check that out. I've got an upcoming video on some of the top decks. But what I really wanted to highlight here was a deck that I think is really well positioned to fight against those aggro decks that are really popular right now. It is aggro itself, but it's got some great control elements to it. Sean McLaren's blue-red deck with Young Pyromancer and 4 Grim Lavamancers just seems amazing to me. Affinity is going to have some real trouble dealing with 4 Grim Lavamancers main deck. Red has some of the best sideboard cards for dealing with Affinity decks. I also really like the 2 Desolate Lighthouses in here. Desolate Lighthouse allows you to cycle to get to the cards that you need later game. The curve is lower on this, a single cryptic command at the top. I'm going to be playtesting this deck, but I think it's a step up from the red, white, blue deck that I've been playing recently because it is faster and a little more consistent. In Standard, we saw a lot of decks that anybody who follows MTG Top 8 would be very familiar with. And we saw one really innovative deck that had done well at a Magic that had done well in one tournament, and I don't think anybody was really prepared for. This deck looks to be a lot of fun. This is Sam Black's White Devotion deck. I'm not sure who originally came up with it. It looks like something that Craig Resco or someone would come up with. It is not just an aggro deck. It has this interesting higher end. It has 3 Shrine to Nykthos in it. It has Archangel of Tides ×4 in it to deal with the Zerg decks. This looks like a lot of fun. The problem with this deck was that it's not well positioned to beat Asban, and there were 3 Asban in the top 8. I think it's well positioned to beat pretty much everything else, though, in the environment. I like seeing this type of innovation. There were some great matches that Sam was involved in. If you want to see the power of this deck, I would definitely check out his match versus Paulo. It really shows what this deck can do and the entire breadth of the deck. The finals were done in Standard. It was the clash of the Siege Rhinos. At one point in time, we saw 2 Siege Rhinos on the board and both players having Siege Rhinos on the top of their deck. Siege Rhino has been the defining card for Standard for a significant period of time, even though with the dominance of Siege Rhinos, there was a lot going on in this game. Before we get to the last game, though, I do need to mention how important the new Mulligan rule is and the issues with drawing mana in Magic the Gathering. Games 2 and Games 3 of this final were decided on mana screw, on not being able to get mana. We saw Den Protectors being played out as 2/1 blockers because one side or the other could not get up to 4 casting cost. I really like the clash that happens in Magic, but I don't like watching games where one player has 2 hands tied behind their back and the other player is just beating them senseless. This is not good for the game. I'm very glad that Wizards is looking at the Scry rule and implementing it to help with this, but essentially, if the finals had ended on one of these I don't get to draw land games, it would have a very, very different feel overall. And I think Wizards needs to even go back to the drawing board a little more and look more seriously at what they can do to prevent games from being decided off of a really bad series of opening hands. These players at the top level are building decks that statistically should give them a solid chance. I just want to see them play those decks so there's a real clash of ideas. My suggestion is to allow players to choose up to 2 basic lands to put in their starting hand and then draw cards to equal 7. This way, no one is stuck without land, and we see a real clash of ideas. This would be a small advantage towards aggro decks that might only need 2 land, but your 4 or 5 casting cost decks, I think, will more likely be able to hit their land drops throughout the game and not get blown out by aggro decks as much. So I think it would actually be balanced. If you've got any ideas on how Wizards can deal with having a few games that are just blowouts because one side doesn't get to play, I would really like to hear them. But let's move on now to what was an amazing finals game. I've cut down to the very end, and Wizards of the Coast has archive of tens, if not hundreds of hours of Worlds. I recommend watching through those. There's a lot that can be learned overall from them. This game, though, really shows a lot of the tension and the ideas that are going on. I was so happy to see Owen Turnwall's tech of getting Ugin out and then the clash to find an answer. Incredible game, super tense, and you can really see as you watch this game, Seth contemplating every move, trying to figure out what's best, and all the pressure that is being put on him at this highest level of Magic.
And note, Owen did not play the Temple off Corsair, he played it off Nissa because he needs to play an untapped 8th land if he wants to play Ugin this turn.
Hero's Downfall is on top of Owen's deck. Just checks how many cards Seth has to work with. Owen still has 4. And whatever way this pans out, we've had a terrific Game 5. We've ended up with a really good set here.
Is Owen in a position where he can play the Ugin and essentially Lightning Helix the morph?
I think that may be what Owen ends up doing. He could also potentially, if he wants, kill Sorin or the Vampire.
Here it comes. Ugin. Gasps from the crowd.
And note, because Owen is able to play 2 lands there because of Nissa and the land for his turn, he's now at 10. He's a point short of, again, one point short. Because the Vampire goes up to 3, Double Siege Rhino goes up to 9. So Seth can't quite kill Owen. That Corsair Krupix is keeping Owen alive by inches.
We start the game at 20 for a reason. Windswept Heath into play.
And note that Seth doesn't have a Hero's Downfall yet. He does not have a direct way to kill Ugin.
More Planeswalker action. Elspeth's on top. And as the board fills up, it just keeps filling up with more Planeswalkers. Is Elspeth going to summon the reinforcements that ultimately claim the title for Seth Manfield?
Can he just get Elspeth, kill creatures, 4 more plus Sorin, and attack with what's left? Is that...
The Vampire gets through, the Corsairs run into each other. It's very similar to the Vampire just attacking. It does end up killing Seth's Rhino, Owen's Rhino, and the Elemental token, but there's also an Obzon Charm. Seth could Obzon Charm to make Owen's Courser larger so that Elspeth's Minus wipes Owen's board.
Well, there's the +1.
So, we now know +1/+0 lifelink till the start of your next turn. How many more turns are there going to be?
Not very many. Seth's hoping there will be 0 more turns. Owen's hoping there'll be a couple. Ugin does mean that, if Seth can't find a good way to reduce Owen's board here, Ugin is the kind of card that will eventually overpower Seth, despite his, life total advantage.
Here comes the Vampire from last turn's Sorin, except of course, no it doesn't.
Sorin's been committed. That's happened. Everything else, that's still up to Seth's determination.
Right.
And this is so rough for Seth because, he's got a lot of good options. He feels like he's ahead, but that Ugin might be the one of the few cards that can shift the momentum back towards Owen.
Ugin rewriting history.
And Owen at least has the peace of knowing he's tapped out.
He's like, I've done what I can.
Yeah, he has no decisions to make until potentially some blocks, so he at least doesn't have to agonize. He can just sit there and wait.
Well, the decision in the end was that the Vampire was going to come in. Nope.
Or
The tale of Seth and the indecisive vampire.
this vampire just going everywhere. But it looks like it ultimately might settle on killing Nissa here.
And then the Siege Rhino and the Courser coming in. I don't imagine he sends those at Ugin.
Well, basically no matter where Courser and Siege Rhino go, unless they're all at Nissa somehow, Owen's going to block them. He can put some double blocks together. He has to respect Obzon Charm. Like the obvious double block is put both the Siege Rhino and the Elemental token on the Siege Rhino.
So, now, as we mentioned, Owen, despite being tapped out, does have choices to make. And it's block time.
And it looked like the vampire was actually heading towards the Ugin, not the Nissa. But I couldn't quite tell.
I thought he had pointed at the Nissa, but
okay.
the vampire is heading at Nissa. We've got confirmation from the floor.
And Owen's just going to be safe here. He doesn't want one removal spell killing Siege Rhino and reducing this block to, a poor exchange. So right now, Seth Siege Rhino is going to die unless he has 2 removal spells. But he has his pick of which of Owen's creatures to kill.
5 creatures battling, 4 planeswalkers, 2 players, 1 world title. Something doesn't add up for someone. It is Courser that will die.
This sounds like...
This looks like setting up for an Elspeth, because
Yes.
Seth was able to trade a 4-power creature for a 2-power creature.
Right, he was able to clean up the Courser Crucifix that he wasn't going to get with the Elspeth with his Siege Rhino that was going to die anyway.
I played a land this turn, sorry.
Seth checking whether he's played a land this turn.
Yep.
Nissa up. Hero's Downfall on top.
And that's rough for Owen because Ugin was, his path to victory here, and he's not going to get a chance to say ultimate it.
Not since 2000 has there been an American world champion.
I know you've said that, and I know I've looked it up, and that it's true, but it's still hard to believe.
It's incredible, isn't it? So many wonderful players. And so hard to win.
Here comes Obzon Charm for Hero's Downfall and Den Protector. A little bit of a applause from the crowd, sort of sensing perhaps we're very close to a world champion here.
And Seth wanted to do that now, because if he wanted to cast Elspeth and he wanted to sack Windswept Teeth, he did not want to shuffle away that Hero's Downfall. And basically anything but that.
And he can also wait a turn, right, on playing the Elspeth now and just Hero's Downfall the Ugin here.
He has that option. The problem is if he does that, then presumably the Siege Rhino and the Shaya might do some damage to Seth's Planeswalkers, though of course Ugin will also get rid of those, so it depends on what Seth wants to do. But basically what he wants to be left with post-Ugin. Though given that he has a Den Protector in hand, it seems like he's got to know that he's ahead.
Windswept Heath eventually ended up on top of Seth Manfield's library.
But it looks like just the straight-up Hero's Downfall is where he's going to start.
I just don't see... ignoring sort of the ins and outs, the intricacies of the strategy, I think it's so hard to see an Ugin on the other side of the table have the means to get it gone and not pull the trigger on that. You've got to be veins of ice for that. And Ugin is gone.
That was a tough turn by Seth, and it was an even tougher turn for Owen, because Owen's reduced now to Siege Rhino Hero's Downfall in hand, basically against everything Seth has.
And by the way, everything that Seth has is 2 Siege Rhinos and Elspeth Sun's champion.
Owen gets to make some attacks here. That is one advantage of this line.
So Siege Rhino at Sorin, Solemn Visitor, Ashaya will come in at Nissa.
Just looking at body language, you would assume that the two players were in completely opposite game states. Seth thinking a long time about how to take care of his planeswalkers here.
And at this point, he's going to trade some coarser toughness for planeswalker loyalty, which makes sense. He knows Owen's got a downfall, but Seth really doesn't care. I mean, Seth has 3 very, very high value permanents in play. He's got a Den Protector face down, he's got a Nissa, and he's got a Sorin. And Owen has 1 hero's downfall. And that's basically it. He knows Owen's got another Siege Rhino in hand, but again, Seth's not worried about his own life total, and Owen is just going to lose based on cards, not even on life at this point.
We've spent quite a long time here, Luis, trying to manufacture ways in which Owen kind of stabilizes, kind of stays alive. What we haven't, to my recollection, really talked about forever is how Owen wins.
Well, step 1 of that is staying alive.
Right, of course it is, but
I mean, he could Den Protector back Ugin, and after he stabilizes the board and go to work with Ugin. I think that's certainly a way. But right now, he has to deal.
I think he's going to Hero's Downfall this Den Protector, given that Seth has so much mana. And Den Protector is essentially, any card in his graveyard. And I don't think Owen can even afford to play another Siege Rhino. He knows Seth has an Elspeth. If he plays Siege Rhino, he's just opening the door to Elspeth minus.
Yeah.
Owen passes. So, a while ago, we had a lot of Planeswalkers in play. Now, we're down to 2, and they're both on the same side.
Well, this may change very soon.
Yeah.
The full crash of Rhinos is in Seth Manfield's hand right now.
Yeah, he's seen basically all of them. Looks like Seth wants to make another Vampire here, given he's just going to attack. And there's only 1 hesitation on the attack this time, so.
Owen at 8. Seth with 10 mana. Such a good hand.
Comes another Vampire token. And then he's going to just clean up Owen's board with the Elspeth here.
Seems like the most likely scenario.
Here's Planeswalker number 3. Elspeth at 1. Manfield passes the turn to what is now an empty board for Owen Turtenwald, who is on 8 life. Seth Manfield has led the way from pillar to post. Does he get the title?
Even with the Siege Rhino in Owen's hand, he's just dead to the Flyers and double Siege Rhino coming into play.
Yeah, Owen goes to 11 here. At the very least, Seth goes +1 Sorin, attack for 6 in the air, play 2 Siege Rhinos.
Yeah. The Rhino is not going to be enough for Owen Turtenwald. If Seth Manfield pulls the trigger on all the things he needs to do, he will turn 3-1, 6-1, 9-1, 13-1, 14-1.
There you go.
Into win number 15. Plus, no blocks, 6 damage. Double Siege Rhino, and Seth Manfield is the champion of the world. Get on your feet and cheer, PAX, here in Seattle. Seth Manfield has done it. You will not see that again. 15 wins.
Wow, that was an incredible game. Seth Manfield goes 15-1, an amazing record to win the World Championships of Magic the Gathering. Well done, Seth. Incredible performance there. You deserve that win. That's just amazing. Please exile that subscribe button, gain 7 life, and draw 7 cards. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to everybody who's over there on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. We've got 2 videos that are currently under production. One of those is the top 5 decks in Modern, and the other one is The other one is 10 amazing budget lands for EDH. Look for those in this next week.